Good evening. Prince Harry's brief tea at Clarence's house has produced one striking image, a son arriving with recent photos and videos of his children on his phone, determined to show his father what has been missing. It was quiet, it was short, and it was pointed. For many, that single detail speaks louder than any statement. It says he wants a path back, not as a working royal, but as a son and a father who intends to bring his children into the fold. In a moment, we'll look at the one practical hurdle that decides whether that happens in 2025. First, the significance of the visit itself. This was not a lavish reception. No cameras were permitted. No joint communique followed. The meeting lasted under an hour, long enough to exchange more than pleasantries, short enough to remind everyone that trust is still the rarest currency in the room. What emerged afterward, from those close to the situation, was a simple, deliberate message. He loved being back in the UK. You could hear what was left unsaid. Being home still fits. The cadence of familiar rooms still calms. The presence of a father still matters. Why does the phoneful of family moments matter? Because it reframes the conversation. For years, disputes have orbited around titles, security, press, protocol, nouns with edges. Showing a grandfather his grandchildren collapses all of that into one human plea: they should know you, and you should know them. That is not spin. That is blood. It pulls a reluctant family toward some kind of accommodation even when other doors remain closed. In 60 seconds, we'll come to the one door that does not open on sentiment, the security perimeter, and why it decides whether Archie and Lilibet step onto UK soil next year. This brief reunion also changes the mood music. You could see it on Harry's face later that evening, relaxed, pleasant, almost buoyant as he moved through an Invictus reception. The words were light, his doing well, but the subtext was heavy. If this was an olive branch, it was offered with care. No televised contrition. No barbed addendum. No attempt to narrate the meeting minute by minute. Just enough for the public to understand that father and son met, and that it mattered. Now to the obstacle course. The crux is safety. Harry will not bring his family into an uncontrolled environment. Charles will not rewire the entire machinery of state protection for a private visit. The workable compromise, being discussed, is simple to express and complicated to execute: a bubble on royal property, where the security is comprehensive, the logistics are modest, and the press vanishes at the gate. Balmoral. Sandringham. Windsor, in the right wing, under the right conditions. It is not romance. It is planning. And it is exactly the kind of planning that makes a yes possible. This, needless to say, is not the story Meghan Markle wanted. Her preferred arc was linear: exit the institution, build an American brand, stand apart. The reality has bent back toward London. Not toward balcony duties or red boxes, toward something more intimate and more disruptive to a carefully curated image. If Harry brings the children to see their grandfather, the geography of their marriage changes. The center of gravity shifts east a few degrees. That is not trivial for someone who has spent years constructing a life at a very specific distance from Britain. Here's the part too many commentators dodge: the welcome Harry received this week was warmer than expected. Strangers shook his hand and called him by a title they still mean. Old friends treated him like the man he was before the interviews, before the book, before the long explanations. That has a way of rearranging a man's heart. Admiration is oxygen, and in Britain, Harry still breathes easier. He felt it. Meghan felt it too, even from 3 time zones away. If there is a nightmare here, it is not a headline. It is a husband who looks visibly more himself on streets he once called home. That said, sentiment will not repair. What words broke overnight? The elder brother's silence matters more than any warm reception. William was not in the room. He did not need to be. His position is known. Trust takes time, and time cannot be rushed with statements or strolls past photographers. When you wound a house that thrives on discretion, the bandage is not a speech, it is a year without leaks. If Harry wants a family, not a storyline, he will have to let months pass quietly, without turning private moments into public parables. Let's come back to the security question, because it governs everything. If the solution is a visit inside a royal perimeter, a few days, controlled movement, No cameras, then the person most out of step will be Meghan. She has built an entire operating system on visibility and narrative control. A visit that is not content, a reunion that is not leveraged, a moment that is not amplified, that is a philosophical defeat. It is also the only path that honors a frail trust. The choice, bluntly put, will be between a filmed embrace and a real one. You cannot have both. And yet, the family photographs on Harry's phone point in only one direction. A man does not carry those into a room to win an argument. He carries them to close one. The message is not reinstate me, or rethink the past. It is meet them, see them, remember that you are their grandfather. That kind of appeal bypasses debate. The king is a man who understands legacy. Grandchildren are the only legacy that smiles back. If there is a lever that moves him, it is not a headline. It is a child's face. There remains the matter of repentance. Regret has been reported, murmured, inferred, rarely spoken plain. For reconciliation to take root, it will need plainer words. Not a televised confession. Not a memoir sequel titled Rewrite. 3 sentences, said in a room no one sees. I went too far. I will prove I've changed by being quiet. Tell me what would help. Families, even royal ones, recognize humility when they hear it. They also recognize performance. The difference is not in grammar, it is in what happens after the words are spoken. What would after look like if this week truly mattered? It would look like this: no more selective disclosures about private calls. No more public deadlines dressed as hopes. No more sources close narrating what should not be narrated. A handful of discreet visits within secure walls. A grandfather in a chair with a child on each knee. A son who leaves with nothing except what he came for. If the next 6 months look like that, then tonight's optimism is justified. If the next 6 months look like the last 6 years, then this tea was a pause, not a turn. For Meghan, the calculus is stark. If she loves her husband more than her narrative, she will let him build a bridge back to his father and quietly walk her children across it. If she loves the narrative more than the man, she will try to package the bridge. The first path restores a family, the second restores a storyline. One lives. One heirs. Only one will age well. There is a weary truth at the center of all this. The British public does not demand perfection from its princes. It demands proportion, private life kept private, public duty done without complaint, and family pain not fed into the machine. Harry has tested that patience. He may yet win it back, but not by arguing his case. Only by closing the file and getting on with being a son and a father. And so we end where we began, with those photos and clips on a phone. If they opened a door this week, it was because they weren't a tactic. They were a reminder. The crown is made of metal, but families are made of flesh. Titles can be traded, schedules can be arranged, security can be negotiated. Childhood cannot be rewound. If Harry truly wants back not into the rota, but into the rooms that matter, he now knows the price. It is silence. It is consistency. It is turning away from the lens when the moment is tender. It is choosing a grandfather over a storyline. That is the moral of this week. Privacy, when it protects the young and honors the old, is not a slogan. It is a duty. And for once, everyone knows exactly what it looks like.